Hi, this is Street Life and I'm Natasha, back at it with a review of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So here's the thing, I like martial arts films, and of those I've seen, I've liked them, but I would say I'm not exactly an aficionado. I like the ones I've seen, like Jackie Chan, I've seen quite a number of his movies, Jet Li, I also enjoyed House of Flying Daggers, some Bruce Lee films, but I would say some of the martial arts films I've come into contact with have been a result of like the older people around me, like especially when I was a kid, like my uncles and whatnot watching them. But of the films I've found on my own, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is one of like my favorites that I like. It's a 2000 film starring Michelle Yeoh, Zhang Ziyi, and Chow Yun-fat, where pretty much you have Chow Yun-fat plays Li Mubai, who owns this sword called the Green Destiny. He's prepared to put aside like the warrior life to settle down with Michelle Yeoh's character, Yu Shulin. He gives it to her for safekeeping, for her to take it to a safe location and leave it there. But the sword is stolen and it leads to a whole series of events, right? Chiefly this thing of getting back his sword. It's a very, very old sword crafted way back in the days in a method that's been lost to time. Very valuable sword. But in addition to that, it's a powerful sword. And with it being stolen, basically what we have here is a martial arts film. But there's also like two love stories taking place. One is like the more restrained love story between Li Mubai and Shulin, where pretty much because, you know, there are warriors at this school in Wudan, this place where like it's like a training facility. They've had to put aside their feelings for each other, or at least put them on hold and keep them in check for some time. But the hope is that now with Li Mubai putting down his sword, that they might be able to build a life together. Neither one of them is married, but apparently they've been in love for quite some time. But things are kind of thrown into a tailspin when his sword is stolen. And so with this being his sword, he feels some responsibility for getting it back. At the same time, there's this love story between Jen and Lo Dark Cloud, who's sort of like this, I don't know if you would call them like marauders or something like that, but he lives out in the desert, right? And he's like with this traveling band. They go about stealing stuff, attacking caravans, taking whatever they can get. And so there's a love story between them. They're younger, they're more passionate, kind of less restrained than the relationship between their older counterparts. And pretty much what you have here is a beautiful movie. Certainly it has some really great martial arts sequences where, to be quite honest, I find it really interesting with like swords and hand-to-hand combat. They figure like really heavily in the film, where the weapon of choice for most of the main characters is a sword, because at the center of this you have like this Green Destiny sword. And so some of the other characters, they use swords as well. But in addition to that, you also have like quite a bit of hand-to-hand combat, which between like the characters I really enjoyed. I don't know martial arts, but it looks really cool when people are fighting. And so it's like you have like these flying kicks and punches and hand blocking and all this kind of stuff. You know, like your typical martial arts movie. First off, I think you have to give like much respect to the choreography, right? Where you have two actors fighting, knowing where to hit, where to strike, this kind of stuff. So you get like this really crazy shot without hurting each other. That takes quite a bit of discipline and quite a bit of preparation and planning. So that definitely deserves like a good deal of respect, like to get that right. There's some really good coordination going on there. But in addition to that, what I think really makes the film is that it's taken place in a rather old city, or relatively old for our times. Number one, the costumes are like really very beautiful, right? They're not of our time. In addition to that, you have like these towns and cities that they've put together. Now, obviously I wasn't there, but like when you see pictures of like old time China and Asia and whatnot, it looks like something out of a picture book. And it's like the style of dress and whatnot as well. Things that you've seen in like history books. So it's like the costumes, the set design, the way it all comes together is really impressive. It really helps to set the scene. Not just that, but it's like the use of color, right? The scenery, like where some of these fights take place, like the towns and whatnot, like that's really cool. It creates like a really beautiful backdrop for this story. Now you have like some stories of revenge at play here, as there's like this villain that pops up, Jade something, whatever it is. She's a part of like Jade Fox, she's a part of like stealing the sword and stuff like that. She pops up every now and then, just causes absolute destruction. She killed Li Mubai's master, and there's like this guy and daughter, and she killed a wife. And it's like she's just been running amok for years now, just carrying on and causing all kinds of trouble. So she's like the villain of the movie. She pops up and she spits like these dart and needle type things. She's got like these little knives. And because of the randomness of her appearing, the fight sequences and whatnot, it lends a lot of excitement to the movie. And it's like just the combination of this stuff I found really enjoyable. I've watched some like martial arts movies in the past, and I think like when people imitate them, you notice like they do the overdubbing where it's like the person's mouth would be moving and it doesn't match up whatsoever with the English translation of what's being said. So it's like you watch with subtitles as the movie's in Mandarin, but it's still like really enjoyable. You know, it doesn't have like that old time martial arts thing of like the person's mouth is moving a mile a minute, and then it's like it looks like they said like 3 whole paragraphs, but there's like 2 words in English. So you don't really have that. It doesn't take away from the movie. It actually adds to it. It doesn't have like the cheesy overdubbing that you have with some of those older martial arts films. So it's like you actually have a pretty good story, because with quite a few martial arts films, like I went back and watched some Bruce Lee movies, chiefly Enter the Dragon. Return of the Dragon I previously saw, but that was like a while ago. But I went back and I watched Enter the Dragon recently, which is like the martial arts is cool. The acting was okay, but it's like for some of the supporting characters, the acting was not very good, and the story wasn't that great either. But here it is, I think, you have like a really good combination. You have like great action, great dialogue. I really like the interplay between Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat's character, like the interplay between their characters, but then also Michelle Yeoh and Zheng Li's character. I saw them interact here, and then also a few years later in Memoirs of a Geisha. And I remember with Michelle Yeoh, like the first time I saw her, I think was in the James Bond movie Tomorrow Never Dies. And so I'm familiar from seeing her in like films quite often, right? She pops up in like different movies and things like that. And originally when I saw this, I was like, okay, you know what, I'll give it a try. So it's like here, the acting is really good across the board. Even the younger actress, Zhang Ziyi, she does like a really good job as well, right? Like around this time, her and Michelle Yeoh were in quite a few films together, like really big smash films. And I find like the interplay between them is really good. The story here is cool, the acting is cool, the fighting scenes are dope, the scenery is dope, the costumes are really great. The only drawback I would say, the one negative for me that I didn't like, was this thing with them flying about the place. Like, you know, them kicking and punching, and with the swords and weapons and all that kind of stuff, that was fine. But I didn't like this thing with them flying. I think I saw clips of it, and it seems like it was done with like wires, right? Like they call it wire work, where like they'll attach wires to the actors or actresses, and I'm guessing like using pulleys or whatever, they can raise and lower them. So it looks like, you know, like they're jumping from here to over there and like flying and stuff. But I didn't like it. You know, it was like too fantasy-like for me. I prefer like the hand-to-hand combat and weapons and stuff with them on the ground was dope. You know, I could have done without the flying about the place. And like there's this scene towards the end of the film with them fighting in like the tops of these bamboo trees. And it's like they're up at the top of the trees, and it was ridiculous for them to be like jumping from the top of one tree to another. And it's like you jump from like the top of a mountain down into like a lake. And it's like, just please, just stand there on the ground and just fight there. I think the scene with the bamboo and whatnot could have been just as effective with them standing like beneath, like between the bamboo trees. Because I saw something very similar in House of Flying Daggers, where it's like they're in this bamboo forest fighting between the trees, and like that looks dope, you know? So it's like, I think something like that would have been better rather than this silliness of you being on like the treetops, you know, lying about the place and whatnot. That was really the only drawback for me. Otherwise, I loved everything about the film. I would say I thoroughly enjoy this film. It's something that I watch every now and then. Definitely worth checking out. Like the martial arts is dope. The scenery is cool. The acting is cool. Everything really incredible visuals, right? The story's pretty good. And it gets a little, you know, techie when it dives into the story between Jen and Dark Cloud. I kind of felt like it waffled a little bit for me there. But I actually really like the love story between Li Mubai and Shu Li. You know, it wasn't bad enough to where, like, I would say, like, it took away from the movie. It was just okay. You know, I more so preferred the relationship between the older characters. But all in all, it's a really good film, which I thoroughly enjoy and highly recommend checking out. Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my movie review playlist. Go ahead and click the thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.